Hello everyone, today in this video I want to go over a tech I call ghost rolls, or ghost dodges. Although feel free to drop your alternative name suggestion in the comments, and we'll see what catches on. My discovery of this tech initially came from watching a well-known duelist. This player became somewhat infamous for doing this weird rolling animation during tournaments. So much so that there were accusations being thrown around about him unlocking his FPS, playing on 62 frames per second, somehow cheating, or just having bad internet. I, however, thought that there might be something more to this, and perhaps there was actually something that could be consistently reproduced going on here. So that's what prompted the start of my research. My research on this actually sat on the back burner for over a year because I honestly didn't even know where to start. But enough on the backstory, and let's get into what this tech actually does, break down its inner workings, and explain how to do it. So what is actually going on here during this weird animation? Well, it's pretty simple. My opponent is just rolling my attack, but their roll animation is desynced. If you've played a fair amount of Elden Ring, you're probably familiar with it being able to desync animations using specific block timings. And on the surface, at least initially, this looks quite similar to how a desynced roll looks like in Elden Ring. But there's a lot more to this tech in DS3, as you will soon see. There's already a lot of desync related tech found in Dark Souls 3, but both the way things desync and the execution of how it's done differ greatly from Elden Ring.
I guess that would make sense, right? Son of a bitch! I got fucking clipped. Ah, shit.
And that desync is so cool. I'm pretty sure on his screen he's just doing the curved sword kick.
This specific desync method, however, is the closest in execution to the desync on demand tech in Elden Ring, but still, its resulting behavior differs. This tech is performed similarly to the desync tech in Elden Ring in the part of the execution that involves timing block inputs, but the key difference that sets this tech apart from Elden Ring is what happens in addition to the desync, or rather as a result of desyncing in this way. You may have already noticed that there appears to be a brief animation near the end of the roll that is flipping the player model back into the upright position, as if the game knew that it actually was supposed to be playing a roll animation there, so it finishes off by sort of playing part of that roll animation before cancelling back into the player's normal movement. So what does this mean exactly? Why am I pointing this out? Why is this important, and what are the implications? To know why seeing part of a roll animation is important, even if it's just for a brief moment, you need to understand a bit about how the fundamental coding of the game works. Without going too in-depth, here's a very brief, simplified explanation. To hit another player with an attack, the logic basically goes like this. You swing your weapon, and if the hitbox of your attack collides with the other player, there are two scenarios. If you see that other player is in iframes, then your attack will simply phase through, and it will be as if you just swung your weapon through the air. If you do not see your opponent in iframes, then your game will send out a hit request to the defender, saying that you hit them. But that doesn't automatically mean that they will take damage. Once the defender receives the information that you supposedly hit them with an attack, their game will then check if they are in iframes. As in, did they press dodge to avoid the attack? If they are not in iframes, then they will take the hit and go into stun as expected, regardless of if that attack appeared to have hit them on their end or not. On a slightly unrelated note, this is the same concept that creates what players refer to as phantom range. Because of latency, other players might hit you even when you appear to have moved outside of the range of their swing on your screen. If they are, however, in iframes, then they will avoid the attack, but still take a phantom hit. Usually, taking a phantom hit is inconsequential, but you do take status buildup. Knowing this, you can probably see why you will get phantom hit more frequently on high latency. Now, if you get where I'm going with this, the reason that it's significant if we see a part of a roll animation is that our game will never send a request for a hit if we see that the other player is in iframes. Our game's determination of whether or not the other player is in iframes is tied to the animations in our game files. So if we see that the other player is doing an animation that our game files says gives iframes, then they will effectively be invulnerable to our attacks during the corresponding window during that animation that gives iframes. Just to prove my point, I can edit a random animation such as bowing to give iframes, and you can see that I will actually end up swinging right through my opponent, even though they don't have any changes to their game files. And when they try to hit me while I'm bowing, their game of course thinks that I should be vulnerable during this animation, so they send a hit request after their attack hitbox collides with me, but when my game receives the request, it checks my animation and sees that I am in iframes, so I only get phantom hit. Okay, so finally circling back to the point with this tech. If your opponent sees even part of a roll animation, that means that they will be unable to hit you during the period of time that they see this rolling animation, as we can clearly see it's showing near the start of the roll animation, which is part of the roll animation that has iframes, which I've gone ahead and marked by making players take on a phantom appearance during iframes, to help us identify invulnerability more easily. Taking a look at the timing at which this desynced roll animation starts, it's 32 frames from the first visible iframe, starting the initial roll at 60 FPS. As in, the attacker will see you back in iframes on the 32nd frame. If you double roll, as seen in this clip, this is what it looks like, and that desynced partial roll animation simply blends right into your next roll. The standard rolling animation gives 13 iframes, which ends up being 26 iframes at 60 FPS. With this in mind, we can calculate that you will only be vulnerable for 5 frames at 60 FPS, as that is the gap between the iframes of our roll and the start of the desynced roll iframes. In comparison to a standard roll chain, you have a whopping 17 frames of vulnerability, since normally you can only cancel into another roll after 42 frames at 60 FPS. Essentially, it's as if you can start another roll 12 frames earlier while you're still in the recovery of your first roll. Now, you might be thinking, if you did the math quickly in your head, wait, 42 minus 26 is 16, so why do our opponents see 17 frames of vulnerability? If you didn't know, animations actually have 1 frame of transition between them. Check out these example clips where we can see this in action. Even going into the roll animation, we will play 1 frame of the roll animation on our screen, yet we still get hit. If you get hit during this transition frame, you can see that your stamina will even be consumed for the dodge, and it even shows that we're playing the first frame of the roll animation on our screen, yet we still get hit and take damage. This is similar to why it's possible to backstab people out of certain knockdown animations in Elden Ring. It's due to animation transitions. Now, with all that technical stuff out of the way, you can probably already see why this tech is so powerful. Less punishable extra iframe rolls for free with virtually no downside? I'll take it. You can avoid numerous different roll catches and frame traps with these early startup ghost rolls, such as curved sword backswing, double thrusting sword alternating pokes, thrusting sword R1R1, S-talk into straight sword early hit, haldag, straight sword backswing, and much more. Important to note here that latency does have a big impact on all of these working or not though. More on that later. But it doesn't end here. After seeing this, it got me thinking. Avoiding roll catches and frame traps is great, but if the game is trying to play out a roll animation for the other player, why don't we just let it? Why cancel this desynced roll animation at all? And sure enough, if you just simply stand there, your character will play out an entire desynced roll animation. So you can just stand in place and let attacks phase through you, while you appear to be rolling from the other player's perspective. You can simply choose to cancel into another animation at any time of your choosing, even in the middle of that roll animation from your opponent's perspective. So this isn't just some quirky desynced roll with a weird partial roll animation that plays. It's a method that completely desyncs your roll and then proceeds to play an entire extra roll animation for your opponent while you stand in place. So now you can probably see where I got the name Ghost Roll from. So what actually causes this to happen, and how do you perform this tech? To consistently do this tech, it involves blocking at particular timings as previously mentioned. If you're familiar with the Elden Ring desync on demand tech, you can use similar timing, tapping block before rolling. In Dark Souls 3, however, you have the added prerequisite of getting phantom hit, so you need to roll an attack late so you get phantom hit within the first few frames of your roll. You can pay attention to the input overlay that I put on screen with most of the clips here for timing these inputs, but it's really that simple. Tapping block and then rolling an attack late so that you get phantom hit within the first few frames. You can even get hit by something like a shiv or fire surge and then roll immediately after. With such seemingly simple execution, I was surprised that in all my hours playing DS3, I had not seen this occur more often, even by players doing it unintentionally. So I started digging into the game files to try to find out the root cause. Looking at the block animations in particular, I was able to narrow it down to this particular event, the blend event. Between all of the different blocking animations, I noticed one outlier, animation 19001. This animation is the raising of the block that is used with the Black Knight shield, and its blend event lasts for 6 frames, starting at the beginning of the animation, while the other blocks, such as blocking with a two-handed curve sword or blocking with an offhand S-stock, only have 3 blend event frames, which match the lowering animations that also have 3-frame blend windows. It's worth noting at this point that I had tried to perform this tech with other types of blocks without success, so what I was seeing with the outlier animation made sense. To further validate my theory that it was this blending event that's the root cause, I decided to edit the block animation for the offhand S-stock to extend the blend event from 3 to 6 frames to match the animation that the Black Knight shield uses, and sure enough, I was able to do it immediately with this other blocking animation. So it appears that this misalignment with the blend events overlapping between the raising and lowering of guard animations is what causes this desync to occur. I suspect that this tech may still be possible with other block animations, but it might be near frame perfect or different timing that doesn't seem to be nearly as forgiving as the medium shield block animation. Some further testing and research is required there to confirm. With how similar this desync tech is to the desync that exists in Elden Ring, at least in execution, this prompted me to revisit the blocking animations for that game as well. It turns out that all the blocking animations in Elden Ring appear to have been based off of animation 19001 from DS3, as each of them have that 6-frame blend event on the block raise animations. What other factors come into play in DS3 to require the added prerequisite of getting Phantom hit, presumably during this blending event, I haven't bothered to fully research yet. Before I touch on how latency affects this tech, there is one other key point that I should mention that affects the startup timing of this desynced ghost roll or dodge that you get. Basically, if you get hit by anything after the initial hit where you started your roll or dodge, then that will make the desync dodge occur sooner. Depending on latency and when exactly you're getting hit, this can either be advantageous or not. If you get hit again during your first roll with enough of a gap, then this should make your ghost dodge perfectly overlap with your vulnerable frames between the 2 chained rolls, giving you a completely invulnerable and unroll catchable double roll. Since a roll gives 26 iframes and there are 17 vulnerable frames in between chained rolls, you have roughly 9 frames of leniency for still getting a completely invulnerable double roll chain. Speaking of latency, you have to keep in mind that the higher the latency, the later your opponent will see you start a roll, so this affects what frame traps will be avoidable. All of the previously mentioned frame traps that you can avoid work on perfect latency, but on higher ping, your results will vary. For example, on around 70 milliseconds of ping, you'll still get backswung by a straight sword mash, but if they delay their second swing pretty much at all, even just by a couple of frames, or try to backswing on reaction to your roll, then you'll be able to avoid it, even on this higher ping, just like in these example clips. Straight sword backswing mash is probably the most precise of the ones I tested, and the majority of the others are much more forgiving with the amount of latency that they'll work on. Funnily enough, by the time that most of the others stop working, you can be pretty much completely invulnerable anyways at that point by double rolling with Blood Ring or spamming Quickstep, which happens around 180 milliseconds of ping. Now, after doing all this testing, gathering the clips, and researching to find what I thought was a satisfactory explanation and breakdown, I had another idea. What if I can actually desync attacks as well, not just dodges? Thinking back to that key point that I mentioned earlier, how you can actually get hit by something like Fire Surge or a Shiv, I started wondering if this could actually be taken even further. The line of thinking was, how can I get hit to satisfy that requirement, but still be able to attack? And what do you know, if we get hit but don't get stunned by using something like a Shiv, then we can see the exact same behavior with attacks as we do with the dodges. The attack itself will be completely hidden, making it virtually unreactable, and then a phantom swing will even be played afterwards for whatever attack you did. You can also desync your attacks by using something like Perseverance to withstand a hit by things that would normally stun you out of your attack. I think that this is especially cool when used for parries, since it only matters what the other player sees on their end. If you manage to pull this off, then you can have a super delayed parry, which will be unpunishable on reaction, even on low latency, since you're hiding the time that you're actually parrying, and if the other player tries to punish your parry, it will be impossible, and you can simply cancel out at any time that's convenient for you if you notice that the other player is trying to punish your parry on reaction. For all of you swappers out there, this also means that you can greatly increase the amount of time you have to swap if you manage to land a successful parry. You can see here that on my opponent's screen, I'm swapping while doing the parry animation, which makes it look like I'm literally cheating. So there you have it. That's pretty much everything that I wanted to share with you all about this tech. One last final note I have is that during my testing, I was actually able to perform this tech with several different timings and sequences for block inputs. For example, I was able to get it to work by holding block the entire time, and then just quickly tapping it again just before dodging. And I was also able to do it by simply a single tap of the block button, followed by a roll. Again, my theory is that this has to do with overlapping blend events and animations, and it's possible that you can set this up by using the blend events that are present in movement animations, like these ones. And that's why it was allowing me to get it with these alternate input sequences. In addition to being able to perform these types of desyncs with fewer inputs, I also suspect it might still be possible to use other block animations to set this up as well, as previously mentioned. So for sure some more research to be done here, but I wanted to get this video out to you all before I find more stuff and have to rewrite this script for the 4th time. So I'll leave it here. I hope you all found this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.